I knew this from the movie. I knew that Oppenheimer was a famous physicist. I knew that he was involved with the nuclear bomb. But other than that, I didn't know much about him. I just remember seeing the book in the library and being struck by the cover. It was a full-length picture of Oppenheimer himself, facing forward, holding a cigarette. The book was called American Prometheus. Prometheus gave fire to mankind, and in exchange for giving fire, he was condemned to rolling rocks for the rest of his life. Prometheus played a huge role in the development of human history, but he also caused harm. So I don't think there's a better word to describe Oppenheimer than Prometheus. This time, Oppenheimer is directed by Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is very popular in Korea, and he's also very popular in the United States. Usually, when a foreign director is famous, it is often a work of art, and the box office is somewhat small, but Mr. Nolan guarantees the box office. There are many reasons for this, but I think it's because he satisfies the intellectual appetite in Korea. Interstellar, for example, was much more popular in Korea than in the U.S. At that time, quantum mechanics, black holes, wormholes, and other unfamiliar concepts were prevalent. It was said that people watched that movie to learn about science. Other than that, Nolan is known for his relentlessly handcrafted films. He has consistently made films that incorporate science, but this time it's about a scientist. It's about Oppenheimer, who was a physicist. It's not a biopic, but it's about the process of creating the atomic bomb and the struggles that followed. It seems like every famous physicist is in the movie. You start with Niels Bohr, you get Einstein, you get Feynman very briefly, and if you know anything about physics, you're probably glad to see that. Oppenheimer doesn't really utilize his abilities at first. From there, Oppenheimer comes into his own and makes a name for himself in the physics community. However, I don't know if Oppenheimer made a big impact on physics. I mean, there are other physicists who have come up with their own theories and things like that, but Oppenheimer was definitely in charge of building the nuclear bomb, so I wonder how he would have been judged if he hadn't built the bomb. It's not really one or two people who built the bomb, it's a whole bunch of people, and it's a division of labor. It's great that you've got it all under control, and that you've got the right people in the right place at the right time, and you're making judgments about what's important. The movie doesn't just focus on the process of building a nuclear bomb. It also tells us about Oppenheimer as a person. First and foremost, Oppenheimer is open-minded. He's not biased towards any particular idea. Which I think is the right attitude for a scientist to have, because you have to be able to look at different sides and only show the facts that come out of it. In Oppenheimer's time, the idea of communism or socialism was just being born. They're slightly different concepts, but they can be used interchangeably. Oppenheimer's curiosity also led him to read Karl Marx's Capital. This open-mindedness would come back to haunt him later in life, as it allowed him to be open-minded and not take sides on anything. For Oppenheimer, it was always going to be about communism, because most of the people he was close to were in the Communist Party. His brother, his first wife, Jean Florence Pugh, his second wife, Kitty Emily Blunt. I think they were flexible because they weren't committed to any one idea. Oppenheimer is Jewish, but he has no intention of betraying the United States to his homeland. The nuclear bomb that Oppenheimer creates is a new technology that had never been developed before. There was evidence that the Soviet Union had developed one, but it was not as widespread, and there was a constant suspicion that someone on Oppenheimer's team was passing secrets to the Soviets. Oppenheimer doesn't deny this, but he wouldn't have been able to work without trusting his team, and it wasn't a technology that could be used immediately. Oppenheimer doesn't seem to have known exactly what the impact of his weapon would be. He had a rough idea, but there was a war going on, and he was just trying to win it. In that sense, war is the greatest misfortune of human history, but it also contributes to progress. Everybody works together to advance and invent new technologies. And that's why Oppenheimer rejected the nuclear bomb, because he realized after he built it that it could wipe out humanity. He allows purely theoretical research and development, but rejects attempts to turn it into a weapon. For some, this creates suspicion and envy that Oppenheimer is trying to keep all the glory for himself. The movie seems to be a mix of fact and fiction. The facts of what Oppenheimer did are basically true, and Cillian Murphy, who plays Oppenheimer, seems to have gone to considerable lengths to achieve a similar look. He looks like he's lost a lot of weight, and most importantly, he looks like the real Christopher Nolan. He's the actor who's been in most of Christopher Nolan's movies, so he's never starred in a movie before, but he had him in mind from the beginning. Matt Damon's Grooves was good, and Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss was the key point of the movie towards the end, and he did a great job. Most of all, the movie itself doesn't seem to have much going for it, but the music does everything. The music keeps you on your toes and keeps